Our guest on this episode of Cuba Cerita is a former Accenture consultant who for years has plied his trade as a headhunter deep in the concrete jungles of Kuala Lumpur and other cities in the region. Born into an aristocrat family background, this gentleman is an example of a true Malaysian professional who has helped identify and groom talent to lead top corporations in the country. Please join me in welcoming Ahmad Reza Ghazali to this episode themed The DNA of Nation Builders. Assalamualaikum and a very good day everyone. Alhamdulillah, we are well into 2024 now and we are so happy that we've been receiving a lot of good responses. We love it also when you give us your comments in the slots on YouTube. It helps us improve. So far we've been interviewing a lot of guests who are obviously, some of them are people that you know outright, but we're slowly also meeting leaders who are not totally familiar to yourselves, but as you meet them and listen to their stories, they become more familiar. The DNA of Nation Builders has been our consistent theme, and we are exploring even further nowadays leaders whom we know of, who may not be at the forefront, but they are nevertheless important in our nation building initiatives. And these are strong professionals, strong leaders in their own right. And today, we have the pleasure. Coach memang seronok hari ini sebab hari ini we're going to interview and meet a headhunter. Headhunter ni, yang kita tahu, headhunter ni is in the deep Amazon jungles. But our headhunter today is someone who navigates the deep concrete jungles of KL as well as the region. And he is a headhunter who looks for people to become heads of organizations. And now, allow me to introduce someone who I've known for many years. I must say, a very good friend of mine, who I hope that you also will enjoy listening to. Saudara Reza Ghazali.
Thank you.
Good morning, bro. How are you?
Good. Known each other for years.
Thank you. Thank you for finding time to join us. It's a pleasure. And, I want to really thank you for, being forthright in, your ideas and willingness to share. All these sessions that we've been having essentially are really understanding the person that you are, the person within. And there's so much I feel that you can share with us, just like our other guests have been before. We sort of like take it along the lines of getting to know you as a person from your formative years. I've obviously done my own fair share of research about you and your background, and I will bring it up along the way. But let's really just kick off by sharing, who really you are in terms of a person, your family background. Actually, I don't even know. Are you a KL born boy?
No.
Oh.
Actually, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting Azman. It's a pleasure to be in your podcast.
Okay.
I think Cuba Cerita will continue to flourish and do well, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, quick answer is no. Actually, I'm a foreigner.
Oh, really?
I was born in Singapore.
Oh, okay. Our first Singaporean then.
Which is why my IC, if you notice, the middle number,
Okay.
whereas yours is always like 14, 11. Mine is 71.
Oh, so foreigner lah.
So foreign born the numbers are totally
71, yeah,
horizontal,
okay.
yeah. So my middle IC is 71.
So Singapore mari.
I was born in Singapore, yeah. But quick history to that was because my father was the first garrison commander at that time before independence. Based in Singapore. Yeah, back in the Singapore gained independence in 65, right? So obviously we were born in what year
64.
before?
Yeah.
The year before. So he was the first garrison commander. And it so happened that actually, I still remember the story because my father was away at that time. My mother was based in Singapore. And long story short, because my father was around to arrange, the time when my mother was actually exploding, so she was rushed to a sort of a third class ward.
In Singapore.
In Singapore, which at that time the hospital was called Hospital Kandang Kebau,
No way, serious.
which thankfully now has been cut short and made acronym to just KK Hospital.
Really?
Yeah. So now it's called KK Hospital till today in Singapore. But before, it was actually called Hospital Kandang Kebau. So every time people ask me, where you born, which hospital, I refuse to answer. It's rather embarrassing. That's a quick story.
So you grew up in Singapore? Can you remember how it happened or what happened?
A short while, of course. And then when Singapore gained independence in 1965, then obviously my father had to make a decision, right, whether to remain in Singapore or to come back to Malaysia, of course, So, of course, he chose the latter, lah.
Okay.
Being a true Malaysian. So he decided to come back and,
But essentially, from what I read of your family background, they are Johorians.
pure.
Both mother
Both.
and father asal daripada Johor lah. Okay.
Johor Baru lagi.
Johor Baru lagi.
Both. Not from Muar, Batu
So
Pahat.
interesting. So even in those days, they had to make that decision whether they want to remain in Singapore and maybe become a Singapore citizen, or come back. Oh, interesting. But it was the Malayan punya regiment lah kan.
Correct. I mean, had he decided to remain in Singapore, then obviously everything is different now, lah, right? I would have been Singaporean, you know. I'd be working somewhere in Orchard Road, that kind of thing.
Tapi in your family, you have what, six siblings?
There's 5 of us.
5 of you,
including
and-
myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now 4 lah.
Now for arwah satu kan. And you are number
4.
4 kan?
Yeah.
Okay, second youngest.
So the 4 of us essentially are very close, right? As in, within 4 years, all 4 of us were born. My youngest sister is 10 years apart from me.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's like the baby lah.
Okay.
She stole the thunder and all the limelight away from me lah. When she was born
As the bongsu.
as the bongsu, but that's okay. Gladly,
Okay.
she's a wonderful sister.
And their names will come up maybe as we speak, but of course, your brothers and sisters are also prominent corporate professionals and well known, and even maybe one day they also can, if they have the time to honor us, be even guests on our show too.
Sure.
So I hope you don't mind, but I think it's respectfully important for me to highlight a bit what I know about your family background.
Yeah.
Now, Reza, I look at you and your family as, I would call them in a way aristocrats. Yeah. Just for the benefit of our viewers, Alhamdulillah, your father, arwah retired Tan Sri Ghazali Muhammad Seth, of course, was at one time the chief of the armed forces and the nation's number 1 military leader. But even on your mother's side, arwah your grandfather is Tun On Jaafar.
Dato' On Jaafar.
Dato' On Jaafar.
Yeah.
Okay, Dato' On Jaafar, one of the, in those days, the founders of the nation, and your mother is his daughter, one of his daughters, and obviously your uncle is the late Prime Minister Tun Hussein On. There's a whole history, even on your father's side also, who come from a background of leaders, respectful people, noble people. What was it like growing up in your family? Even though maybe you were bongsu for a while, but what was it like growing up in your family? What, in reflection, are maybe lessons that you learned from your parents and even your forefathers in those days? Are you able to reflect?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that's a very wide sort of question, right? And a good one. But let me try. I have to reflect, I think, a little bit on the history, right? So, first and foremost, I think Dato' On Jaafar, I mean, he had a very huge, big family. The reason for that is because, he had multiple wives, right? And not simultaneously, but one after the other. So therefore, the entire family history or tree, right? Is huge, big. You know, so even for example, let's say Tan Sri Zati, you know, is somewhat all related. So then, because of course through different wife and then different, you know, lineage, so to speak lah. But still on the punya, you know, tree lah, you know.
I see.
Then again, my grandmother, great grandmother, who is Turkish, as you know, right? And so she herself. So if you talk about Dato' On, his father and his mother essentially also had huge trees because they married few times, and each lineage is huge.
I see.
So you can imagine you multiply all that, right? It is a big tree, you know. So if you want a lot of that history, of course, you can go to, I believe, in Yayasan Johor. They have a whole family history tree there.
I see.
And you will see right down somewhere below, my name is there. So, you know, so why I explain that is because we're used to having big families, number one. Number two, growing in a very, you know, large family environment, you know. So, you know, gatherings are always huge, you know, for Hari Raya, for example, birthdays, you know. In fact, you know, well, we've not done it for a couple of years, but we've also organized an on-family Hari Raya gathering.
Wow.
And if with the last that we did it in Shangri-La, about probably before COVID, of course, easily about 300, 400, it can even explode to even, you know, but then sometimes you have to restrict it a bit.
Yeah, I can
but
imagine.
you can easily explode to, you know, maybe up to even 1,000. Who knows? If you want
And
to
these
go.
are all the
Correct.
next generations, kan?
Correct.
So there is this how do I say, relationship connectivity and respect. You know, everyone has their jalan cerita lah, kan?
Yeah. But sadly, of course, you know, many of them have passed on.
Yeah lah,
right? So now it's really sort of my generation who's at the forefront in that sense,
Okay.
you know. I mean, the generation above me, unfortunately, a lot of them have passed on. So it's really up to my generation as well as one below me, you know, to try and keep the tradition going. You know, so it's a little bit hard, of course, because of you know, new technologies and what have you. You know, people tend to not keep that relationship as close as we used to, right? But I think growing in that kind of environment, it really shows you the support mechanism, you know, the environment, the love, you know, and also more importantly, which I must mention, is humility. Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
that is very, very important, and that's embedded, I believe, at the core of my entire family values. Because, you know, we don't care who you are, whether you're rich or poor, where you live, you know, who's your parents. Dalam keluarga, you don't differentiate that because we are family.
But actually,
You know, that's important.
Alhamdulillah that you mentioned it, because I was going to actually say this, and I apologize, you know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but there have been an odd occasion when I have either been invited for a wedding or even a funeral, and you know, I observe it that even to me as an outsider, and they don't know who I am, but I don't feel as if I'm an outsider. I love the way that your family carries themselves, and you know, and they make people feel comfortable. And I guess in reflection, alhamdulillah, maybe that was how your parents and even the generation before them treated people, kan? Minta maaf lah, kan, kadang-kadang you do sometimes encounter some people in life from other walks of who are slightly different. I don't want to say the bad word, tapi
Correct.
alhamdulillah, rezeki you lah, Reza, kan?
Correct.
But going back, your father was the chief of armed forces. You come from a family steeped in long political tradition. But you and your brother, for example, Dato' Badisham, were you ever inclined or pressured to join the forces or even enter the foray of politics?
Well, yes and no, I guess. You know, as we grew up, I think coming from a family predominantly from politics, as well as, you know, military from my father, of course, there was that silent pressure. But, you know, alhamdulillah, my parents or even my greater family, whether my aunties, uncles, you know, what have you, they don't really pressure you to do something that you don't want, right? So just like now, our kids, right? We don't force them to do anything they want. Let them decide. So it was the same sort of value system that my parents, imposed on us. Although, like I said, there's that silent underneath, like join lah, Aska, like Papa, that kind of thing. So yeah, there were some of those talks. So I think the closest, and of course we grew up, in a military camp,
Yeah,
going
kan.
to school in a military, truck and stuff like that. So we grew up in that environment. But, I think the closest that I got to joining a military, of course, in my younger days, was to train with the military. For example, learning how to shoot.
Oh, even
Yes.
in your younger years.
Yeah, so my father said, okay, go and learn to shoot, So I went with all the army and the commandos and whatever, and there were, shooting range, and we learned to shoot M16 pistols, at the age of maybe 13, 14, 15,
Okay.
thereabouts.
At the camp lah.
Yeah. And even I still remember this incident when I believe I must have been probably maybe Form 2, Form 3, thereabouts when we were in St. John's. And every time coming back, I used to look forward to waiting for my father to come back. And the reason for that is because he comes back and we would arrange quickly all those tin cans, across his window, there's a hill. So we used to arrange the tin cans right opposite his window. And then he comes back. He has his own rifle,
Wow.
.22, and also a shotgun.
Oh.
So he would then bring it out and
what
put it at the window, the frame of the window, and we used to learn to shoot from the house. Yeah. So it was that sort of
Wow,
upbringing.
I
in
never
that
knew
sense.
that.
And then of course the usual, throw us to learn silat lah, with the commandos, taekwondo, and my father introduced taekwondo nationwide for the military. So obviously he uses as guinea pigs lah. So we kena hantam, kena everything all, by the instructor. So I had to learn all this lah. But then my proudest moment, Azman, was, as you probably know, was when I was in a way invited to join the territorial army. And whilst my father was still alive, alhamdulillah, and I was so honored because he pinned the major badge, if you recall, when I had that ceremony. So that was my most proudest moment. And although I don't really, orang kata jiwa tu bukanlah dalam askar sepenuhnya, but then it was my way of just showing him that at least the very little that I want to make him proud, that I was trying to follow his footsteps, but through the territorial army lah. So yeah, and so he was very, very proud. He will often ask me, what are the programs, the plans, what you do, in the territorial army. So I keep him abreast lah.
Yeah, and again, I got to know him through your eyes and through your company, you occasionally visiting. One thing I will always remember, Reza, kan? Of course, he was a very soft-spoken gentleman, and what I read historically about him, he was known as a soft-spoken general.
Yeah.
But one thing that I can really say I really admired, and in a way it took me aback, was even in the day when we were attending conferences, and he would be well into his 80s, he'd still come for local conferences.
Yes.
And we'd bump into him, and he'd be a jovial self. And I said to myself, MashaAllah, at this age also, he still wants to learn, or he still wants to be relevant, kan? Even as a participant, in the conferences, I memang tabik lah. Alhamdulillah, and
I mean, we all have our own heroes,
kan?
right? So undoubtedly, my father is my hero, right? My icon, my hero, my father, whatever lah. But of course, it's wrong to sanjung, kan? There's only one Allah, kan? But in life, if it's one person that you look up to, that you respect, and respect thoroughly, for who he is, it would have to be my father. So I am, a lot of people say, of course, that, sometimes even they say I look more like him than my brother, and even my jiwa, my soul, the way I bring myself, In fact, my uncle one time when I was emceeing in a wedding, he pulled me aside and he said, you talk exactly like Papa, your gerak-geri, or, everything's up there. Oh, really, But anyway, put that aside. And by the way, as I said, this is his shirt, and
This
I
is
wanted
his
to
shirt,
honor him.
something that you
Yes.
inherited from him.
This is his shirt. So
It looks brand new.
Yeah, one of those that I picked up.
Cantik.
But the one thing about him is that no matter that he has been, at the top, but I go back to the word humility. And that I am very, very proud and happy that he has instilled in me, because, he has taught me that it doesn't matter if you deal even with a driver versus a kitchen helper, or even up to the CEO or chairman, you must deal with them with respect. You treat them as who they are and not what they are. So I like that, and I continuously follow. That good values.
Yeah.
My mother, on the other hand, she coming from the online age. The one thing that I've learned from her is principles.
Okay.
They're very strong in principles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's no A minus, it's A or B. There's no A minus, A plus.
Okay.
Because to her, and I have to relate this incident because a few incidents in life, right, have always reminded you. And when it comes to principles with my mother, one time, during Hari Raya, so, in the fun of Hari Raya when I was, probably 18, 17, I can't remember how old I was, and having fun, mingling with the crowd and cousins, and like I said, it used to be huge gatherings. And she said, look, she calls me Jaja, by the way, right?
Okay.
That's my nickname. So she says, Ja, go and collect a cake, from this uncle's house because I need it for the Raya. So I was mingling. I said, okay, Ma, I will. I'll do it once, I'm done. And she says, no, I need it here within, 30 minutes, because, a lot of guests are coming. We're running out of cakes. I said, okay, Ma, I'll do it when I'm done. So anyway, fast forward. I was mingling. I lost track of the time, and you know me sometimes, mingling so much, and it was probably past close to about an hour. Only then I realized, oh my God, So I rushed to the uncle's house to go and collect the cake. And guess what? 5 minutes after I arrived, my mother arrived at the same house
To collect the cake
to
herself.
collect that same cake.
my goodness.
And she said, "You're late."
Oh my goodness.
And she took the cake right in front of my eyes,
Aiyo.
and she just went off.
MashaAllah.
So that taught me that if you say 30 minutes,
Yeah.
you keep to your promise.
Okay.
That is the on principle and my mother. As she is so fondly known. My father terbalik.
Oh, your father is more, although he's a military
Although
man.
he's a military man.
Yeah.
But he's soft, he's a gentleman, he's a damn good listener, so I'm blessed lah.
You got both
They've
sides,
got two good balances
Okay.
lah,
Yeah. Oh,
Not good or bad,
No,
right or
but,
wrong.
Yeah, but good examples to follow lah.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's a great insight into your background, and thanks for sharing. Certainly, I'm sure it jogs memories, kan? Because this is very random that we're talking about. Okay, I'd like to explore you from another angle, and I found this intriguing also very early on, that you, from what I read of you and I know of you, you did start out in the field of hospitality. Eventually, you later got a degree in economics in the US, and then you joined Accenture as a consultant. Okay, that's the early part of your career, but for a short while until today, you've chosen the profession of being a headhunter. Okay, now it's a very crude word. I know the more polite word is executive search. Yeah. But I've seen people call you, there's Reza, the headhunter. Okay, can you really just share
Headhunter with a pen, not with a lembing.
headhunter in the concrete jungles of the cities? But okay, for the interest of the audience, kan, a headhunter and what you do as a profession is still relevant today, in spite of the LinkedIns, the Facebooks, the Seeks, the orang kata apa, job streets and all, kan. They have now sort of invaded your space. Tapi there's a role that a headhunter, a professional executive search consultant plays. But can you just give the audience the benefit of understanding what exactly do you do as a headhunter?
Yeah. I think the best way to answer that also, Man, is that, sometimes you've also got to ask, what makes you go into executive search?
Okay.
And why do you think you're good in doing executive search?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So just going back, say, 2 steps before I can go, 1 step forward, is that I remember when I was from Accenture, of course I learned a lot from Accenture, you know, being a typical consultant, doing all these government privatization projects at that time. This is what in the sort of early 90s lah, when I came back from the US, 1990, 1991, thereabouts that period. And I enjoyed what I was doing, and I learned a heck lot in Accenture. And I remember when I did that switch, and I was sort of headhunted to become a headhunter by my ex-manager who was in Accenture.
Okay.
So when I first wanted to move over, I still remember my brother said, "Are you sure you know what you're doing? And are you sure this is right for you?" And so that was a very good sort of check and balance sort of point, because I said, "You're right. Let me pause for a while." So what I did was I said, okay, I put two sort of, you know, equal sort of columns, if you wish. Okay? And I said what I'm not good at and what I'm good at.
Okay.
And what I, vis-a-vis search.
Okay.
So when I put all that together, I noticed that the right side, which is what I'm good at, there was a lot more that matches essentially the role of an executive search. Only then from the exercise was I confident.
So, for example, what do you reflect on were maybe traits of that you saw were more relevant to executive search?
Engagement skills, communication skills.
Okay.
Right? Which is very, very essential, right, when you do executive search.
Yes.
Because the main essence of being a good executive search consultant is, you know what, is making real connections
With the persons.
Correct. So that in a way answers your question, which is you can have LinkedIn, you can have AI, you can have, you know, what have you lah. It's okay, you know. But making real connections is where basically you link the right person for the right job at the right time. Right? So that one requires a skill over experience in order for you to read it, right? And not to orchestrate it. Because sometimes people, you know, as they say, right, you have the right leader at the different times. So a simple example is you may need a transformative leader. You may need a leader who can grow. You know, all this requires different types of leaders. So sometimes one person is replaced, it's not because he's not good, but because times have moved on, and therefore you need a new leader. So all this, if you looked at it, right, vis-a-vis your skills that's required, first of all, before you do any analysis of the person, right, you need to first make real connections with the guy or girl, right, or lady. So before you can really thoroughly understand.
And they need to trust you.
Correct.
Okay, because one thing I know, okay, is that this is the thing about elements of nation building. You know, Alhamdulillah, rezeki you, Reza, over the years, you have been largely responsible for finding top CEOs. The area that you find expertise in is CEOs of multinationals, the GLCs,
or even the board level.
And at board. One thing I found fascinating was that to a layman out there, whenever we see these changes happening at the top, kita assume or understand it's just a very simple process. But the reality is that people like you actually are hired, engaged as professional consultant to advise the boards, to advise the companies on who would be a good leader to come in or succeed, an outgoing leader, or even come into the pipeline, kan?
Correct. Because doing this matching, right, it's not, people think it's easy because when they focus only on the hard skills.
Yeah.
So, you know, I need an accountant, I need a banker, you know, that's the easiest part, right? So whether you're a banker, you're an accountant, or you're not, it's easy, right? But it is the soft skills, right, that is more important. And that's why I said, for you, you need to make that real connection. And I say the word real connection. There's a huge difference when I say that word. When you just make connection, that's not doesn't necessarily mean it's real. You know, so connections can be artificial, for example, right? So you and I, if we had not known each other for many years, just passing a card, that's connection.
Yeah.
But can I really say I really know Azman?
Yeah.
No, you know, because who is really Azman? And is Azman right for this job that I'm looking for my client at this time?
At this time.
You know? So sometimes it's assessing deeper things like, you know, your agility, as you know that word, you know, the timing of you moving, for example.
As the candidate is
exactly
ready, yeah.
Right. The push-pull,
Yeah.
you know, all these things needs to come together.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, again, people say it's easy because they look at the hard skills. They say, oh, well, the package, has to be right. I mean, those things are just math. You can just work it out. But it's all this, underlying sort of skills and experiences and intuitives and hunches that all comes together in play to make sure that, it is the right candidate for the right place at the right time.
Has there ever been an instance where, in reflection, there has been a case where you actually saw this person being suitable for that organization, or the organization may be inclined towards this person, and yet you as an advisor, a close confidant, maybe felt that maybe not just yet, in the interest of the person itself?
Many times.
Yeah. See, that's important. Kan?
Many times, Many times, sometimes, of course, senior level searches like this, not, especially at the board level or even at the CEO level, right? Sometimes clients feel otherwise, against what you think it is, right? But, client being client, they insist on wanting who they want, And sometimes, you just say, look, I can only put it on record. Right, so I mean, I won't mention names or companies, of course. Where in that sense, it was my responsibility to make sure that we don't make the wrong placement. But I'll be lying to say that I've not done it before. So one clear example, for example, was a bank, and we were helping them do a board search, but they insisted because of recommendation and whatever from the top. They said, look, we want this particular individual, and it so happened to be a Tan Sri lah. Okay, but completely from the wrong field. Okay,
Really?
So I was thinking, what at all is the relevance of this person's background, knowledge, experience, and industry to a highly regulated industry like a bank? Correct, and it's so technical. So I said, look, although the individual may seem okay, but now the issue here is the hard skills. That is a complete mismatch. And I said, I cannot see that this person will be able to fit, contribute, value add, and will still even catch up, with such regulated and technical industry like banking. True enough, within 1 year, it was a mutual separation. Because
they insisted, and yet you were proven right.
So both sides, even the individual, give up. Raise his hands and say, "Oh, this is not the industry for me." So I told the client, I said, "Well, there you go.
Okay.
You should have listened to my
And
advice."
that's the years of tested experience that you can gain without, again, with all due respect to clients. Clients are clients, lah kan. Now, and I also, reflect on your career. You went as high as being the managing director of Korn Ferry, which is the global number 1, listed in America. So you're the MD for Malaysia. And today you continue on with Pedersen and Partners in a regional role, covering many countries in Asia. Asia Pac. And so is it a similar pattern for other countries in terms of approach, in terms of needs, in spite of the cultural differences? In how do you deal with a regional role now?
Oh no, not at all. I think in that sense, humbly, I'm still learning.
Okay.
So that in itself is also very interesting for me, because so long as I continue to learn, that also drives me, right? So in my new capacity and role as the head of Asia Pac for Pedersen and Partners, when you deal with folks in India versus China versus Thailand versus Indonesia, for example, it's different, and why it's different is because the culture nuances of each individual down to a country lah. So without going too much details, sometimes in again, not using anyone as an example, but some countries, if they say yes, it actually means a no. Whilst it's a no, it could be a yes, right?
Okay.
So how do you understand and read this, And sometimes they overpromise but underdeliver. Some people underdeliver so that they can overpromise. Whatever works. Right? So you've got to learn all this lah, But at the end of the day, you have to learn fast in order to get the best of everyone.
Okay.
right? Because, for me, my role as APAC is to try and get the whole region to work together, so partnership, collaboration, and down to, of course, the productivity, lah,
Okay.
right? So that the whole region
So, Pedersen
thrives.
is fast becoming one of the larger global type search plus talent companies, kan? And alhamdulillah, they've chosen a Malaysian to lead their APAC, which is a big honor for you and also leaders in our country. And I think the interesting part, if I can maybe suggest, is that you, as you say, you're continuing to learn. So what are local cultural norms, kan? Professional approach is professional approach, but what are the nuances, kan? And of course, you've got MDs in each of these countries who are meant to run the day-to-day
right.
business,
That's
but you
right.
then need to ensure that all of them are
Yeah.
towing the line and doing what they have to do,
That's
kan?
right. So you create the vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's your role as a
Yeah.
leader, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to communicate this very succinctly, right? And then you need to follow up, and then you need to then make sure your country heads execute.
Kan?
You don't really execute because
Yeah
that's
lah.
their role.
That's their
right?
role,
So
yeah.
it may sound simple, but it's not that simple. Right? I
Okay.
show you. Because like I said, all the cultural nuances and the issues, in each country and officers. So, but it's fun, lah, man. It's
Alhamdulillah.
fun. It's fun.
See, that's the thing. When I first got to know
It's
you
fun.
in your profession, kan, and we've known each other for many years, but I always observe, kan, you'd be in conferences, you'd be in hotel lobby lounges, you'd be in various functions, and you'd always be meeting people. And I said, that's such an interesting job, because I guess every day is different. And I personally also am a lover of meeting new people, but it must be continuously orang kata energizing, kan,
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, Reza. And again, this is, I don't mean to sound theoretical or categorizing, but you've seen leaders throughout generations, kan. Today, kan, if we were to sort of like reflect on what you see of CEOs, apa kata, the next generation of leaders, kan, is there anything in reflection that you see is different from the early days when you were in search?
Humility.
Humility is...
So if the younger leaders who have risen to the top probably a bit too fast and have not gone through enough, I don't mean a lot, but just enough of from the school of pure hard knocks, right? That doesn't typically inculcate, again, like I said, that humility. And why humility is important as a leader is that nowadays it's not about do as I say, right? You can't just have autocratic sort of leadership style. Those days are completely over. You need to be, well, not entirely consensus. I mean, that can never be possible, right? To
Okay.
get everybody to agree all the time, because you are the leader. You set the tone, you set the vision, the strategy, and then you, again, like I said, you communicate and try and get buy-in, right, as much as possible. So it is important, for you to go through that school of hard knocks, to have that dose of humility, in order for you then to be able to relate better with people, and listen. The key word is also listening skills. How many times do you hear, right, leaders not exercising this enough because they like to talk and they like to push their ideas, but not necessarily listen and listen well. Again, Azman, right? Listening can mean, I can be listening, you think I'm listening, but actually I'm not. Because I've already set my mind in terms of what I want to say and do with you. But I pretend and go in this mode that, okay, tell me, Azman, what do you think? But am I really listening to your ideas?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'm not. Because what I really want is just to evoke my ideas on you. So you must be sincere in that sense, and therefore sincere, being more humble, lah. You can't pretend like you know everything.
Yeah, lah.
Yeah.
But and again, I guess it's a challenge also. For example, nowadays, because of the advent of technology, kan, everything is like at your fingertips, and I guess leaders also, they need to be seen, at least, to be making faster decisions. But also there's one thing I noticed, Reza, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I tend to notice that leaders, they may be younger, That's fine. Age is a fact. Age is a number. But I also nampak dia punya term tu sebagai CEOs also is relatively short, kan? What is what
Generally,
do you see?
yes lah. I mean, there are statistics enough, globally to say that the tenureship of CEOs are in somewhat getting shorter.
Yeah.
But in part, it may not entirely be their fault. But because there's a lot of IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, so on and so forth. So that kind of just forces the changes, like, externally beyond their control. But, again, if you think about our times now, where things are just moving very rapidly. Yeah, I mean, you said technology, for example, right? You said transformation, for example, right? You said digitalization, for example, right? So all this has forced the business to rethink, right, in terms of, their strategy. So that requires, again, in that sense, that in itself is fast moving, and therefore you need a new leader, so that's why the longevity of a CEO in that sense is sort of slowly getting stunted and shorter,
Okay.
but not necessarily a good or bad thing.
Yeah lah.
Sometimes, I mean, it's not so good, maybe, because sometimes you do need a CEO who has to be there long enough lah.
Kan.
Just like a prime minister of a country, right? If you change every year, every 2 years, I mean, every
Continuity
policy
and,
keeps on changing. And
What about this other point? This one I hear from my coaches a lot, is that they ask me, how do I manage politics upstairs? I mean, not to be a politician, but at the end of the day, as a leader, I'm not sure how do I manage the board, manage stakeholders. How important do you see that as being leaders, especially today?
I subscribe to what my father have taught me, which is don't play politics, but you must be aware of the politics. So I don't play politics with clients. I don't play politics within an organization. And trust me, there are some headhunters who are crazy enough to want to try and do that. Okay, with their clients, with their clients' politics. So good luck to them. But I don't play politics, but I must be aware of the politics within my client's, umbrella, right? So whether it is at the board, and therefore it is to understand, importantly, the chairman, right? And then understand the members of the board, and understand the composition, right? And then see where who represents who, for example, the shareholders. So of course they have the agenda. So sometimes a company can be owned by 2-3 different shareholders. So they all each have their own agenda, right? So that's clear cut. But then you need to see where is the current in that sense, who holds majority, what have you. So all this, like I said, you have to be aware. Your antenna, your ears, must be wide, because, I mean, of course, as consultant in that sense, you don't want to step on the wrong landmine, you know what I mean, and be on the wrong side of the chairman, for example, where he's representing, for example, the larger shareholder, so no matter what the minority shareholders say, he would have a bigger say, because he's representing a larger shareholder and he's the chairman. So it'd be fool for you to, go against him, So these are all just, in a way it's basic, but in a way it's not also, right? You have to, itulah, peka lah. Yeah. But don't play politics.
Yeah lah. Be aware of it. And again, it's all with the right intent, kan?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, if I were to ask you, again, you're still young enough to be in a profession, but do you see yourself for many more years being this role that you play, and what is it that still excites you today? Can you maybe share?
I think now, of course, we're still very young, right, man?
Yes, still very young.
But no, actually, no. I mean that in a good way, because of my profession. Actually, I really sit here and I do believe, us being, in our late 50s and coming to our 60s, it's actually, to me, personally, no offense to the younger folks, we're actually in the best age.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because we've got accumulation of all our years of experience and observation, man.
Yeah.
And with observation and experience, but of course you yourself must have a lot of self-reflection.
Yeah.
If you don't have any self-reflection, you can have all these too, but it's worthless, because you think you're so good, you're so great, I know it all. If you have that mode, then good luck to you. But if you have a combination of these three, right, it makes it so much, you're at the cusp of the point where you can give, At the same time, you're still learning.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? But you also got a lot to give.
Kan?
You know, you can value add in many conversations. I can go to any conversation. And again, you spoke about why headhunting and all that. One of the two things primarily is because I love meeting people,
Kan?
people in itself, and I love to know what they do
Kan?
and learn what they do,
Okay.
learn from them.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say I'm a generalist, yes, but because I've had the benefit of meeting many, can you imagine what job can you get access to chairmen, CEOs,
Okay.
and hear from themselves? Kan? So
Yeah.
you learn very quickly.
Yeah.
What are their issues, their challenges? You know, what keeps them awake at night? You know, what are their strategy? So you learn so much. So long as this continues. And again, I would I keep on reflecting on my father because really he has taught me a lot.
Please.
My father passed away at 92. Till the day that he died.
Yeah.
Okay, seriously, he was still working.
Really?
And the reason for that, I can never forget. He says to me, I said, Pa, how do you do it? You know, you retired for so many years, but you still, like you said,
Yeah.
meeting him when he was 80
Correct.
and he was still charged up,
Yeah.
this and that, going for meetings, I said, Pa, slow down lah, you're already 80, But no. And the reason for that, he has taught me, he said, look, no matter what age you are, even though you've retired, the most important thing is you must have a sense of purpose in life.
Kan?
The minute you stop your sense of purpose, you will feel that you have cut off yourself already. And that's when, trust me, mentally, you're not active. Not so much physically. Physically,
Yeah.
okay, you can continue to play badminton, you go
Yeah.
for your walks,
Yeah.
physically active. It's mental.
Mentally.
And mental affects even your emotions, right? So if you don't have that sense of purpose, this too will slowly, erode. That's when you really go down very fast.
Yeah.
You will get sickness, you get lonely, you go into depression, and you get Alzheimer, you get dementia. InsyaAllah lah kan.
Yeah, insyaAllah.
Abang Allah decides kan.
Gosh, this has been such a fun conversation, and this is what I want, to us to understand you as a person, and there's so much that will resonate, I'm sure, with the audience that's watching and listening, and hopefully it would inspire them also lah. Kan, everyone has their journey in life. Semua ada cerita dia sendiri kan.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course,
Now,
of course.
in this particular episode, ada lain sikit.
Oh.
Because what we did was, we got in touch with a lot of your former colleagues.
Oh, okay.
And we compiled a series of quick fire questions.
Oh goodness. On the spot.
Again, you're not being privy to this, but this is just a bit of jenaka sikit lah. But it's interesting because I was quite impressed by the questions they asked.
Right.
I'm going to just read them. There are about 10 questions.
Oh.
As are they yes or no, or you choose one. Okay. First question: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Second question: red, yellow, or blue?
Blue.
Blue. Early riser.
Sorry, blue is such a male color. Being in the military family, it's obvious.
So I caught you. They're not red of Liverpool, the real red.
So it's a red.
Early riser or late nighter?
Early riser.
Early riser.
Now that I age.
Okay, this one is so interesting. I don't know how it came out. Super bikes or Wendy's?
Super bikes. I'm a big biker.
Yeah, I know.
I love bikes.
I saw how you.
Yeah.
I watched you on Facebook. You were recently
Yeah.
in New Zealand and with your whole
I
group.
got one wife,
One wife.
but I got 4 wives as well because there was 3 bikes.
Yeah. Okay, Phuket or London?
London.
Wow, okay.
I love London. No, seriously, every time I go to London, man, even before I land at Heathrow, I have a smirk on my face. I kid you not. It's like automatic. It's like, before I land.
Balik kampung tak?
It's like, no, London never changes kan.
Kan?
People kata,
Yeah.
boring lah, ni. But to me, exactly why I like London,
Yeah.
because nothing changed.
Yeah. And
Oxford Street lah,
Hyde Park
Piccadilly
lah.
Circus lah. I love it. Yeah.
It has that character kan, which all of us can resonate
I can
with.
stay there for like a month, just do nothing.
Kan?
Kan. I love it.
Okay. Hair or beard?
What do you think? Beard lah now.
Beard now. I can
because
see
I got
that.
no choice.
It grows faster.
It grows faster.
Okay. This one, I think you somewhat answered. Attitude or aptitude?
Attitude.
Attitude lah kan. Okay. Mo Salah or Steven Gerrard?
Mo salah.
Oh, salah. At maths or geography?
Oh, God, geography. I suck at it,
Okay.
man.
And this one came question all the way from Holland, from
Oh.
Nona in Holland. Lempeng or durian pancake?
Lempeng.
Lempeng! I thought durian
No,
pancake.
I'm not a fan of durian. So much.
Oh, yeah.
Not a fan.
Aduh.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's a pleasure, lah. You know, having you, and we can carry on these conversations
Yeah,
for hours
yeah,
on end.
for
Can't it will
hours.
never end. But I think the whole idea of having you was really just, again, respectfully. I know you as a person, as a friend, and someone who I feel, I really wanted to share with the audience. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Appreciate it.
sharing about the person that you are.
Thank you.
Very, very humbly, and I love the reflection on your parents and life in general. So I wish you all the best. Continue doing what
Inshallah.
you're doing, helping us build our nation's leaders even further. And again, I think for you, the next challenge will be how do you also groom the next generation of Reza Ghazalis also. Yeah.
I'm not sure others will want that.
But it's an amazing profession, I must say, and
Yeah,
congratulations for persevering and being so good at it, and wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed, just sharing,
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right. Well, Alhamdulillah. Again, we had a very nice, concise session. This time with Reza Ghazali, and hopefully in future episodes, we'll continue to invite unique individuals and professionals who have got their own interests and professions to share about the person within. So, inshallah, until we see you again, we look forward to another episode. And please remember, don't just subscribe, but also please leave a comment, because we're always looking on how we can be better at what we're trying to achieve. Till we see you again, Assalamualaikum. Have a very good week ahead.